Well, welcome back, everybody, to part 4 of my book study of William Glasser's Every Child Can Succeed. And I thought we would look next at mastery learning and psychosocial development. So I'm going to retrace our steps and take us back to some of Erikson's material from our textbook, and then how our textbook interpreted and suggested we help build on that. And I'm preparing for section 5, which is the feedback of my students to our book. They've been living that book for many years, some of them, and they have a lot to say about it. And I wanted to conclude my project with what the real experts, the students, had to say about things. And so let's review Erikson's theory of psychosocial development before we go any further. His work was very much his own journey, where he felt that he hit these stages of crisis that brought him to a sense of identity. He believed very strongly that all human beings have a desire to affiliate, which I don't think any of us would disagree with, and that all people have the same basic needs. So very much like Glasser, he reduces life to the meeting of some basic needs in life, and we could debate that all day long. I would like to think as Christians that we strive to live a little bit higher than at that level, that we assume that the Lord is going to meet our basic needs, and then we can get on with the work of being need meters in other people's lives. Well, he lists in our textbook on page 70, I believe, yes it is, 8 stages, lifespan stages: trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame, initiative versus guilt. Which brings us to the 2 that I wanted to focus on in industry versus inferiority, identity versus confusion. I'm not going to deal with the ones beyond the secondary level. It's beyond the scope of my project. But I wanted to touch on what he had to say about education and learning and psychosocial development at the secondary age level. In the industry versus inferiority level, 6 to 12, he suggests that school and home need to provide opportunities for students to develop a sense of competence through success on challenging tasks, and that a pattern of failure can lead to feelings of inferiority. Well, this is very much consistent with what Glasser had to say in his work, Every Child Can Succeed, and very much this has been affirmed by the discussions of all the educators that have touched mastery learning, especially at this 6 to 12-year-old level. I don't think there's any of us that agree that establishing patterns of failure would be a very serious thing at this age level. And mastery learning allows children, as per the rubric that you saw in an earlier part of my presentation, to come back, and if they have not met mastery, they do not feel comfortable with the material, well, they can go and we reteach them, and they relearn and they reassess until such time as they are successful. Now, we're not naive enough to believe that they're not sort of gauging their progress against their peers. But what we do allow them to do in gaining mastery at some point is to avoid this horrible pattern of failure. You know, I think all of us can, remember times when we were developing as students where if we were struggling in a certain academic discipline, and kept failing at it, nothing could make us feel worse. The identity versus confusion stage, and largely what I'm dealing with at the secondary level. Adolescents experiment with various roles in an atmosphere of freedom with clearly established limits. Confusion resulting when the home environment, and I'll add school environment, fails to provide the necessary structure, or when it is overly controlling, failing to provide opportunities for individual exploration with different identity roles. So one of the main criticisms of the teaching community that is applying mastery learning with the Glasser choice theory application is that there is not enough support. You know, we might want to call it control or rules or guidelines, but the kids are very much experiencing a life where they need more from us in the area of providing some structure. So in Glasser's book, time is not an issue. It's only a resource, and I think I've already stated that, you know, in reality, parents don't understand things that way, and the kids themselves expect to progress with their age group, and maybe haven't married the notion that if they don't have structure, they don't have timelines and deadlines and rules and procedures, that they will not succeed. But the key is balance. So the key is always balance. I mean, we want to make sure that we provide opportunity for success without frustrating people. But something they both missed, and Erikson was criticized for not taking into consideration culture as he looked at human development and psychosocial development, that his experience in his culture might not be the same experience of someone in another culture. And Glasser misses that whole point too. He does not deal with cultural differences. Well, first of all, Glasser doesn't really deal with age and stage, although I think we have to assume that he understands it as an MD and believes that we'll sort it out, but does not address culture and educating kids in a post-Soviet world and educating a lot of Asian kids. The families, the children do not appreciate the freedom that's in front of them. They don't want it, quite frankly. They want teachers to be teachers, and they want us to challenge them with their learning, and they'll deliver on the production side of things, and they don't appreciate what we're doing. They do not want to develop in the way that a Westerner might. And again, Erikson criticized for neglecting the fact that intimacy can often come before identity, especially with mature females. And I've really myself experienced that the girls and the guys at the secondary level, when applying mastery learning, are totally different projects, and Glasser fails to deal with that in his book. I'm going to try and move down here to adolescence. Our textbook then goes on to make some comments on how we might support young people in their psychosocial development, building upon Erikson, and reminds us that we're dealing with kids experiencing physical change and sexual feelings, wanting to assert independence. Again, our text also affirmed what my students have told me, that they want stability, they want structure and discipline. They understand very clearly that they want to rebel, but they want us to meet them and give them something to rebel against, and that these kids are definitely in a quest for individuality, while at the same time being very much pressured and influenced by peers. So we have them at a very tricky time in their life. The text also suggests that we are dealing, when we're educating adolescents, with the development of their identity, which is true. They're developing a sense of self, purpose, and destiny. These things are temporary, that they're at a stage where they're making very crucial occupational, religious, and political choices. And then our text reflects some research where the children are traced through their stages in identity development, resulting in achievement, where they actually understand what it is that they're going to do in this life and in the world. So something that Glasser and Erikson both missed, and I just want to point it out as we get to the end of this section, is that a child's identity, purpose, and destiny is actually formed in them before the foundation of the world, and definitely as they are created in their mother's womb. We learn a lot about that in Jeremiah. But this text in Romans 12:6 teaches us very much, and we learn from the original Greek that this charisma, this endowment that is given from God, is inherent in our DNA, and that our role as educators and parents are to train children up in the way that they should go. And when they're old, they will not depart from it. And that scripture has been abused. It's always been spank your kids often and make them memorize a lot of scripture and go to Sunday school often and they'll be okay. But that's not what it teaches. This is actually an educational verse, and it teaches us to know our children, set the conditions so that they can succeed according to their gift or bent that is inherent in their creation. And when they're old, that's where they're going to find their success. They won't depart from that path, that successful path that we set them in. And so that's it for section 4. We'll get ready to meet the children in their comments from Kiev International School in section 5.